Has everybody watched this movie?
Fuck!
Damn.
I'm just making sure.
See you next
I want a
week.
category. I want a free category.
We'll
I
never
watched
give
it
to
last
you.
Sunday.
Especially not on this movie. Having to rewatch this one. Okay. Welcome! There it is. Ah! Alright, hold on, everybody. Hold on. Sync with me on 3. 1, 2, 3. Ah! You're a little off. You're a little off.
Not my tempo.
Not my tempo.
I can't go quite as high right now. I'm a little too stuffy.
Just throw
That's
a
fair.
chair at him.
Yes.
So the next Buddy Holly
Yes.
or whatever.
No, I feel like we're all a little stuffy. Welcome to the Stuffy Nose Podcast!
We all are.
Yeah.
I am. I got some phlegm.
Dude,
I mean, we went from tornado season to
winter.
winter
With
storm.
no
It's nippy
transition.
outside right now.
It's
It's
a bit
getting
nippy.
windy.
Yeah.
It is nippy.
Cold.
With no transition. We went to mid to high 70s to
You know what they
20s.
say about weather in Kentucky, boys.
kill yourself.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my God.
Anyways, we're the F Movie
I do that
Podcast.
all the time at work.
Now with all
Oh, I
stuffy
bet you
noses.
too.
Yep.
Just turn around with you, baby.
Price. Did you do your homework?
Yeah, did you?
No.
Oh!
I do actually. It's on my phone. I don't have my phone.
Can
Well, let me go get
mean
my
that we
phone.
start
Cut!
making
I have
people
it.
get
Yeah.
knocked for.
Right.
Like, oh, you don't get you lose a pick now. 'cause
You
You
lose
lose your
your
pick, and we don't even get to talk about this movie.
Yeah, now we don't talk about it.
I have
We get the
mine.
option to opt out of talking about this movie.
Nope, I got it. It's on
Okay.
my phone.
Dang.
This is the kind of professional
Are,
stuff
are
you
you
expect.
sure that we would want the option to not talk about this? Because is this not going to be an opportunity to just rag on Price for the next
Pick
hour?
on me.
Well, let's find out. Price, what movie are we talking about today?
We are talking about the 90s movie Perfect Blue.
97.
Yep.
Or, as known in Japan, not even trying to be funny, Perfecto et Bleu.
That sounds French.
Listen, my French and Japanese are a little rusty, so they come out side by side.
Eh, that's fair.
Konnichiwa, bonjour.
Konnichiwa, bonjour.
Buongiorno.
Bonjour.
Buongiorno.
Yeah.
Margarita.
All right. Anyway, so what's this Perfect Blue 97's movie about?
So this is about a, I would say like almost low tier Japanese female pop group. They're not very famous, it seems like.
And they have an all-male audience.
Yeah.
All
I don't-
males all the time.
Like that was such a weird thing to see right at the start. It's just like there are only guys in this audience.
Yeah.
Only.
But they're not like too sexual or anything. They're wearing like kind
Yeah.
of low, like the tutus or whatever, are like pretty.
Nothing more sexual than
pretty
any other
low.
musician.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is just
Totally.
like a pop group. Like that's the only vibe
Yeah.
I got.
Well,
this
yeah.
is very
That
much
and
like,
it's clearly speaking of idol culture, which, oh god, do a Google search on that to find a rabbit hole. Maybe it's actually worse than this movie, but anyway.
So Mima is the main character. She leaves the group at the beginning to become a more serious actor. I think it just seems like she doesn't feel like they're going to go somewhere, or like I never really got
Like,
her.
as far as what her motivation
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that she's trying to like transition to like a different part of her life, and this is kind of
Yeah.
the transition she was
I
looking
agree.
for. Like,
And she's trying to transition to being a more serious actor, and then as she's doing that, she's really emotionally fragile, and just like is having a really hard time taking it in. She sees her former group doing better without her,
phrasing.
and she eventually kind of creates this almost persona of herself that she sees, which mainly comes about because she has a stalker that is mimicking her and created a website
claiming to be her.
claiming to be her, and basically it's her journal entries, but the journal entries are incredibly specific. Like, I step off the left foot off the train because blah 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 blah. She's like, I do that.
Intimate
Why did they
details
do
about
that?
her.
And it's just like, oh, I got the milk with the cow on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which she did.
Yeah.
And she eventually doesn't know who's real, like if like she's the real Mima or if the Mima is the one that she sees, who's this perfect embodiment of kind of what she wants to be.
Yeah, she sees like this idol
I
version
don't
of
know
her.
if it's a perfect embodiment of what she wants to be, but it's more of what she was.
Right.
If she had not gone with making this career change.
Like you see this like confident. I guess it portrays itself as a little perfect, but I don't necessarily think that's like what she thinks of herself. But yeah, you get like this haunting idol version of herself, and she's just bouncing around like I don't know, a rabbit or something that bounces. I'm not really in it here today, guys. I won't lie, but yeah.
well, the whenever you talk about the very beginning, like, you're not really sure why she chose to go that route instead. I think a lot of it was this, like, split agent situation that she had. Like, one agent that she had wanted her to continue on with the pop group, and then the other agent, this male, was like, no, you need to establish yourself as an actress. And the entire movie, these two are butting heads and, like, cannot, like, compromise and cannot, like, figure their shit out, which I think was really weird because, like, I don't know if it was different in 1997, but you could be both. This movie was completely structured around you can be this or you could be this and nothing else. Like, and as you come to find out, the agent that wanted her to continue on with the pop side of things was kind of like the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know if you really can do both, even in today's society, because think of somebody like Jared Leto. Like, he's seen as almost a serious actor, but when his 30 Seconds to Mars really made anything
He
in
could
a
go back
while.
right now. if
Justin
he wanted
Timberlake.
That is a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah, they could still put out, and it'd be even more
But-
popular because he's a
Yeah.
famous actor.
Uh-huh.
And I understand, like, where you're coming from, but it's just like, for me, it's just like there is no middle ground. It is either all this or all this, and she has two different agents, and the entire time she's conflicted, and they're conflicted more so even. But yeah, for the very end of it to be basically the agent that didn't get her way is sort of like the person who is
Big spoiler here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we had to
So
get
just
to
let you
that.
know beforehand.
This is like the last 10 minutes of the movie here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're jumping from the start.
Yeah.
Establishing
And then Mason went,
motivations,
"Woo!"
and the nation's now telling you.
But
how
I'm
it's
also
gonna end.
giving you my biggest qualm with the movie because from the very beginning, I feel like this entire movie has a really cool story and a really cool plot, but it is being held up by toothpicks. And the toothpicks are these two toothpicks that say you can only do this or this, and the entire weight of the movie is just like barely balancing on it. But with that being said, I do think that like the psychological part of this whole movie, the eeriness, the creepiness, is incredible. I do think that it's neat how she made. You called him something, horseface. Last week.
Yeah, he is now Horseface.
Yeah.
He is awful. He is atrocious looking. He is a bad looking guy.
Well, his eyes are like one here and
You know
one
what?
over here.
Everyone in this movie has like
Yeah.
the
the
wildest.
creepy ones.
Yeah.
Like even the manager lady is like
Yeah.
they made
Awful.
her intentionally off-putting for some reason.
I guess, yeah.
This has to be important, and it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we touched enough on the meaty middle of this, which is that for those who don't know, this
Oh,
has
God.
a lot of psychological thriller
Yeah.
aspects to it.
It's such a descent into madness and like not
Oh,
knowing
that's not what they're going for.
not knowing
Let
where
me get there.
Don't worry.
where reality is or where you're dreaming, and as the audience you also have no idea what's real.
Yeah.
Like the more it goes along, you're more like, I have no idea what's happening anymore.
Mhm.
Like I cannot figure it out because she cannot.
It
figure
is
it out.
really cool. They do a lot of interesting cuts in this movie, like between times.
They
Like at the
do.
beginning of the movie, it does between like her being a pop idol and then her just like grocery shopping, kind of showing her she's already kind of got this dual identity she's trying to deal with, and then like the cuts really emphasize that. And then later in the movie when she's trying to be an actress, like it does it even more where she's doing something and then she wakes up and you find out it's a scene in the TV show that she's doing.
Yeah.
So it's even harder for her to distinguish what's going on.
Right, like there's a whole psychological premise where you get the impression that maybe she's like dissociative identity disorder, she's like split personality going around killing people. A lot of people were dying, by the way. We didn't talk about that part.
There's some blood.
Yeah.
So all these people who seem
Yeah.
to be like leading her towards her like actress career stray side seem to be taking the L in a lot of ways in this movie.
It's more of the people that are exploiting her.
Right,
in a
yeah, you're having
sense.
people taking pictures of her naked and really putting out this. I got the impression it was just anybody creating the identity that Miwa wasn't an idol, right? Because there's the obsessive people who are like, idol Miwa is only me, like the only Miwa, and then there's Miwa trying to be like an actress and doing this, and anybody promoting that and putting that forward, and incidentally also taking advantage of her during that time.
Because she's
people are
still
getting
trying to find
ripped.
her identity as an actress.
Right.
And they're like, well, you need to show some skin a little bit, and she just does.
So yeah,
She doesn't really-
so she takes nude
Full-on
photos,
nudity.
right?
Yeah.
Does
Not-
a rape scene with nudity.
Yeah, the nudity is not the bad. Like the rape scene was like her first actual scene, besides like that tiny little like Law and Order type
Yeah.
BS, which
Yeah.
I guess is like a huge show over there. But like,
I just can't imagine who dives in that hard.
Right, it's
Yeah.
not like if I heard that like Justin Timberlake was gonna start doing acting, and then he's like, all right, but we're gonna let you do a rape scene with like, I don't know, Mila Kunis or something like.
yeah.
That's the only movie I'm trying to think
Yeah,
of.
it's basically like
That's how we
if
legitimize
any-
you as an actor,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like if any modern day, not high. Justin Timberlake's too high.
Yeah, that's fair.
Harry Styles.
Probably high profile.
No,
like a lower
Feels too big,
profile
yeah.
pop
Ariana
singer.
Grande.
Like somebody in
Gets
the
it.
Word Alive or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like a low tier kind of band.
But
Yeah.
if they suddenly got in and it's just like, oh, they're in this nude magazine and oh, they're doing these really messed up scenes on this like low budget Law and Order
What about
TV
Fergie?
show.
Fergie sounds a little more. believable.
She's like 50 now.
Well, like Fergie back in the day, like 97.
No, but this is beside the point.
Anyway, so yeah, all right. I want to wait. We have. Do we have another second before we get into our thoughts? I always have to double check. No, we
No.
just leave
No,
it.
it just
Right?
Yeah.
fun, yeah.
All right, so we got to get into some thoughts on this movie because I think that this is a cool concept movie, and the animation stuff does serve like as a strength at times for like some of like the jarring visual content and stuff like that. Not like jarring because of violence, because I'm American, baby. I'm tuned out to that shit. But
but you show a boob.
Yeah.
That's got my
but I'm
attention.
upset that they show titties on here.
I mean, they
And-
show more than that.
Yeah.
It's
Ooh,
full.
yeah.
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 No penis though. Can we talk about that?
No dong.
Can we
No
talk about
dong
no
is
dong?
Yeah,
No dong
yeah,
sign.
you know that's true.
My
because
quality.
There were definitely rape scenes where they could have shown dong.
Coulda
and they
shown
didn't do
dong.
it.
Yeah.
That's.
I am
gotta
bothered.
knock them for that.
Yeah, that's getting dinged in my score. But
Get
even more
ding-donged.
yeah.
Ding dong.
Ding dong the dong.
I think it's more frustrating that it feels at times how sometimes it was appropriate and other times it was just like you just want to be a hentai. Like
The second one where she's getting chased.
yeah, she's getting
I
chased.
totally agree.
And I'm just like, you just want to sit there. You're like, you got permission to show titties in this movie, and you said, we're gonna draw all the titties now,
Yeah.
and it just kept going
Different
on with it.
sizes.
Right.
The first one when they're shooting the scene and her first big foray into acting.
Mhm.
I think that was kind of necessary. Went a little bit too long, a little bit too sexual because like it
It's
did kind
pretty
of like
embellished,
show
but
her
yeah.
boobs and everything. But it was a little bit needed for the plot to move forward and show her descent. But the second one where she's getting chased and then like it gets really explicit.
Right.
That's not needed.
Also, during the psychological part, I have love-hate relationships with like the slow in-betweens of people getting killed. Mostly because they would kind of show them and then they would just like kind of kill them pretty immediately after. But there was like a couple of times, and I don't know if it was just because something about the animation style does make a lot of these characters look fairly similar if they weren't the main characters.
Yeah.
But there were times I was losing track of like, who is this person and why are they dying? Like
Yeah.
later,
The cameraman in particular is
Yes.
one where it's like he dies and you actually, I feel like if my recollection is correct, you don't really know who he is when he dies, and then it goes to a flashback of the photography session, at which
Right.
point
Yeah.
you actually see who he
Yeah, you see like a
was.
montage of him like
Yeah,
Yeah,
being up
taking
in
pictures
her
and
and stuff like that, freezing. And but yeah, no, there was a couple times where I'm just like, yeah, some of these characters really look pretty interchangeable, and I wouldn't know. And I'm like, all right, cool, they're dying, or like they're whenever the elevator opens up with the
God.
like,
Yeah.
box and he hops in and he's just like eyes are
I
gouged
completely
out.
forgot about that guy.
Yeah, I was
that
like,
part was cool.
wait, who's this guy? like
They showed him before though. He had
They-
some lines.
they do,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's more of a problem for me that I'm just like they. Okay, now I have to suddenly remember and feel as though that all these characters have depth a little bit as they're getting killed.
I don't know
And
if
not
they
like a
even need to
lot.
feel like they have depth. I think it's just there to be to keep reiterating
Sure,
that,
that,
there
like,
is
these
so
people are
much
getting
depth
killed.
following
And-
her.
And I would say it's not necessarily like I want more out of these characters or anything like that. Just something that diversifies them either visually or something else that doesn't make it feel like that I'm like, this looks like the same Asian drawn guy who just got killed kinda from like the last kill.
Oh, the character designs in this movie are unexceptional. The only one that I think stands out is Horseface. Really.
Yeah,
The
I
rest
think-
of them are like pretty generic 90s looking anime
Right,
characters.
right.
I feel like he's definitely meant to stand out. too,
Right,
because
definitely.
there's so many points at which he's supposed to be like standing in the background and stuff. So they wanted him to be something. That
Which
you would
this
see.
had one of my favorite shots, almost in anime in it, which I really really liked when at the beginning of the movie,
Titties flop.
where he's in the front row or whatever, and like the camera's framed like he's holding up his hand,
Oh yeah.
and he's like holding Mima like she's dancing, and
Yeah.
he's like in her hand, but from his perspective.
Mhm.
I thought that was really cool. I like that a lot because it just shows like his immediate, you know, immediately how he thinks and views things just from that one shot.
I think seeing that guy there just at that concert looking at her, I think literally could have done it just fine too as well. Like
have him just staring at
That
her.
might have been the most uncomfortable scene of the whole movie.
yeah, that looks like a man who's gonna be obsessive over like all.
But
of
he's
this
not
stuff.
even real.
Well, is he? Isn't it? No,
Alright,
that
I didn't think he was
definitely
for
real.
sure whether or not
Horseface
he's
is
real.
I'm
real.
pretty sure he is real.
I didn't think he was real because I thought
The way he seems to disappear from scenes all the time
So
does make it
how
almost
he's
feel
presented
that
in
way.
her imagination, I don't think is that. But he's a real person because at the very end, during his whole like chase and rape scene with her, and she hits him in the head with that. Like she talks later, or the manager talks later about how she had to kill like both of them after she like. Because Miwa, during like a chase with like Horseface towards the end, she's like, oh no, don't rape me more, and then hits him with a hammer, and then she's just like, probably, and really he probably should have been dead at this moment,
Yeah.
but so she goes off with the manager during like one of her little banter, like she says a line something to the effect of like, oh, I had to kill them both, right? Like so.
Yeah, she does mention something about him dying.
Right, so like I think he's there, but I don't think that he's as hyper present as like
Yeah.
Miwa's imagination is
As
presenting
she
her. That's the
is
psychological.
basically
So that
saying,
that's the
right.
thing. That's his whole disappearing act. I think is
Right.
mostly just because it's in her head.
So there's the psychological aspect, which I thought was like okay in this film, all things considered. But I'm talking a lot about the positive, but I want to look at it in big picture, and I can tell you that at its core, this is driven as just excessive nudity, sexuality, and murder. And there are some cool things going on behind the scenes, but I won't sit there and take away from the fact that I'm like, this feels like a movie that's to the point where it's just like, here's the circle of their like, at least this is how I felt. They had like a board and they're like, okay, so psychological thriller parts, murder parts, here's like these threads, but like, what do we want people to get out of this? And we're like, titties. Fucking killing shit.
Number
was
one.
they were
Yeah.
not nude that often.
No, it was like 2 to 3 times, but just enough in like an hour 20.
About
that-
as much as like Paprika was. Maybe a little bit more.
was
more
there
than Paprika?
more
for
than
sure.
Paprika for sure?
Paprika,
I
there was a
remember
long
Paprika.
scene that
Where's
she
there
was like
nudity
on
in
the
that?
she was on that.
There was
Yeah,
one
there's
separate
that
table.
one long scene.
He like cuts her
there's-
open.
Yeah.
Oh, she was nude. I didn't know she. I didn't remember
Oh,
she
yeah.
was nude in there. Oh, believe me, I remember the arm.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, we've all had prostate exams. It's all right. So, but yeah, I just feel like at its core that there's this weird thing going on where it just keeps coming back to these themes, and I feel like the movie could have been a lot stronger if it felt like it didn't try to spend as much time being overly graphic, I guess, and not necessarily for like the murders. The murders I feel like are like fine, even though they're a little excessive as well at times. Like,
I feel like this movie did exactly what it was trying to do in my head, which is to be disturbing. So I think all
I
those
agree.
things work.
the disturbing parts
correctly
I thought
in
were
there.
fine, right? I think that it's just like some of the excess, like whenever it comes into like, how do I describe this? So if this movie was pitched as a PG-13 movie, but then they got permission to do R, and it just felt like, all right, everything that lets us push this into like a more extreme level, it felt like those were the things that they were most interested in about.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
the R rating really helps this movie though, because it sells like the graphic nature of what she's having to go
Well,
through.
you
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
want to
You
watch
see
a
the
psychological
blood.
thriller
You
if
see
it was a
everything.
PG-13 movie. You just wouldn't want to see it. So like, you're right, it does help it, but I'm not watching a PG-13 anime psychological thriller. That just doesn't sound that appealing to me.
Paprika PG? No, it had nudity. It had to be.
I don't know. I feel like this one, like maybe they told the director, like, let's hold back the nudity a little bit. And he was like, I don't know what else to do, and then he just let all of his weird thoughts get on there, and it was like,
Yeah.
this is what we're doing instead. That to me.
I think to me, like the best part of this movie, or the best parts, were the murder scenes because, yeah, you had some like sort of dreary, like psycho sort of sequences, but then you had a guy getting stabbed in the eyeball, and it was graphic, and like that was cool. And then like again, you had like her chased, or like the cameraman that was like super weird, and but then you had someone getting stabbed like 50 times or something, and they were like. The tempo was obviously off, but like I really liked.
Not my tempo.
Not my tempo. I liked all the bloody scenes. If it's gonna have blood in it, keep
What?
going.
What are you
Just
shaking your
go.
head
It's so
for?
funny. It's like that's your favorite part of it.
It's
To me, the best part in this film was the like the 3/4 section of it where it was the really cannot figure out what's real and what's not,
Yeah,
and
I
like the
agree.
very clever way of using her being an actor in this show, and it's just like, oh, she's in a room and they're talking about her having dissociative order, and it's like, okay, is she not an actor? Are these people that she's acting with actually like it?
They're
That
superstars
whole,
that like don't really know her but do because she might be in it. Yeah,
like that whole just mystery of like questioning the narrator.
Yeah.
Right.
I think was the
unreliable
most
narrator.
interesting thing that this movie was doing, and that was the part where that shined the most.
Yeah, no, I agree with that statement. Nason brought up a point that I remember was my other giant qualm with it, because they wanted to take like a horror trope, and that is the chase choreography, aka some of the stupid decisions this girl is making whenever. So she's in the apartment with the manager towards the end, right?
Yeah.
And like she's like got like kind of a fighting chance. Like the manager's got some like definitely a different weight class and probably beats her up a little bit on this one, but then the girl's like, let me run out to this balcony, tiptoe over this thing, and sit there and do this. Well, like, the manager definitely isn't, like, down and out for the count. Like, she's gonna get up in a couple seconds. And she's balancing, acting her way across a door closed with, like, a trash can on the other side, over the balcony going, to where? I don't know. But
you don't find out.
Like, I get sure, like, there's desperation. You say, don't, I mean, dude, she's close to the room. And then I'm like, yeah, but at this point, the manager was knocked down. She could have gone to the door. And she's on the internal side, so unlocking is not that hard of an option. Or you choose the balcony up on the whatever floor, and which she does take a big tumble on.
See, the biggest chase thing for me, like, I'm more okay with that. The thing I hate the most is the tripping and falling over nothing.
Oh, yeah.
That's what gets me more than anything.
Like, and it's cumulative for me, though, too, because it's like, okay, so then there's this, and then she falls, and then they seem to be doing pretty okay for falling after, like, a 4th-story building or something like that.
That was a hell of a fall.
Yeah, this isn't a small tumble. This is like the end of John Wick 3, him falling off the buildings and stuff like that. Shout out to John Wick 3. But and then it's the trip fall stuff, right? And then it's that. And at that part, it's like painful to watch in real life, like action or like, real life horror movies. And it's even more frustrating because I'm like, you get creative things to do with this, and you're just recreating what they're doing in the live action stuff that I find the most annoying.
That trope of falling over nothing really just makes me concerned for having never been actually chased. Like, I feel like that's the thing I need to be prepared for. I might just trip and fall
You know
over
what
nothing
happens?
whenever I'm being
You're
chased.
gonna fall after you're being chased. When you
like, damn it, those movies were right.
I get it.
Damn.
Retroactively, I'm putting those up in the 1.5.
That's
You're looking
the
for
point.
yeah, you're looking for sprinkler heads like in the ground. Like I had to have tripped over something. Any more thoughts? Are we jumping on to the trivia?
I'm fine with that.
Needed more dick. Next.
You think it would have had it?
It definitely.
It's jarring that it doesn't,
easily
actually.
had it.
Yeah.
It really could have.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's like needed, but it's just like, why not? If you're doing everything else,
Yeah.
Feudal Japan.
show a ding dong.
You mean
whatever.
frugal Japan?
Frugal.
Show that penis.
2 bits of trivia that I thought were the most interesting is the first one was that when they're doing the choreography, like dancing on Cham, they purposefully made him not in sync because they wanted to make it seem more lifelike, because like people in real life really wouldn't be totally in sync unless if they're like BTS or something, I don't know. But they weren't totally in sync, which I thought was cool. And Madonna used some shots of Perfect Blue on her backdrop for one of her tours.
This wouldn't surprise me.
That does surprise me. Does it seem like a
That's-
movie you would put there?
Madonna's a connoisseur of art, and this is 97, so like...
I was gonna say this is definitely the time period, but I wouldn't have thought that she would have known about this movie, let alone.
Yeah, that's.
No, this is a really popular movie. Like a lot of
97.
I saw some Requiem for a Dream used like inspiration.
Right,
for
a lot of the
scene
psychological
from it.
thrillers actually play a lot of homage to this. So this was a fairly like.
I think as a psychological thriller, this is a very smart movie.
Yeah.
I like it for those elements. Like I'll say that at its best, whenever it's sticking to this stuff, it does a really good job of keeping that tempo and pace.
Mm-hmm.
Almost to a fault at times, because there are some times where I feel like, again, like we're moving so fast where I'm like, wait, who's this character? Why are they getting killed? Oh, okay. And then I remember there was a split moment where I was like, oh, wait, we're in the manager's office, or we're in the manager's apartment. And that took me like a good couple minutes.
Which I like that a lot, though, because the manager has been in Mima's room and knows what it looks like, so she got one
Seeing
that's
it
like
perfectly
identical.
recreated.
Yeah.
Which that threw me off, because I was like, are they in Mima's room?
I like
no, that's the manager. Something's going on here, and then like you figure out that she's like, I am you. Like, oh, she's the crazy
Right.
one.
I liked the decision once I got there. It was how disorienting, almost too disorienting. Now, a certain amount of psychological thrill, you want your viewer to be kind of confused.
Well,
but
they were showing, not telling.
Right.
Which I like.
Yeah.
Somewhat, yeah.
But I'm saying the pacing was that it was going so quick that we went from like hitting. It felt like for me, whenever I'm watching this movie, it's like hitting Horseface in the head, and then we're in her room, and then like a couple minutes later, as she's digging through stuff, I'm like, oh wait, we're not in her room, and I'm like, that part I liked, but it was just like, man, we were like the pacing.
It's a
was
choppy
good.
movie. It's
It's
an
very
hour
choppy.
20.
Right.
I think this movie does a good job of trying to put you in the shoes of the main character,
Mhm.
and I mean, it would make sense
did
that
that,
you're
yeah.
just as confused as her at where she is now.
Okay, well, I mean, we've kind of talked about the length a little bit, so fat,
Making sure.
fit, thin. What we got?
Good God, you can't. Wait, what?
I don't care. What
Fat,
everybody
fit,
think about
perfectly
the
fit.
length?
Gosh.
I'd say it's fit. I mean, I don't think there's any more I would add. You could say it maybe is actually going a little too fast at times, but overall, it didn't overstay its welcome, and I would almost think that it would be bad if it were to try and go a little bit longer.
I think it's honestly, I think it's fit, but it's a little on the thin side because I feel like not
You
necessarily
can't
that.
just pick one, huh?
Well, so here's my thing. All right, so we've gotten chubby enough times where it's
Bless
just
you.
like it's not full on fat.
A lot, especially a lot of anime movies that are older go on too long.
Yeah, this one, to its credit, I think is like pretty solid in its runtime, but I feel like just a little. Strangely enough, I want to decrease some of like the time spent in like let's say the rape scenes, and increase just a little bit of time in the transitions between places because I like the chaos. Like again, the chaotic transition part, I'm fine. I'm on board with the psychological thriller effect, but when it's happening so fast that it's almost like problematic with me to keep up with which like where we're at in like real time, relatively speaking. That part where it was starting to lose me a little bit. So maybe a little bit more just scene developing and just sit there and say, okay, here's like the big picture where we're at. Because it felt like we're here, at 5 times at once. And there's a part enough where I'm like, good enough for the theme, but too much enough for me as a viewer to be like, oh, I feel like we're just hopping through universes at this point. And it made me feel less connected to the movie as that went on.
It wasn't nearly as much as Paprika, though.
No, Paprika, you're on a
It's the
parade,
same
and then
thing.
you're everywhere
I
else.
told them this
Yeah.
was the same director, and they're all like, "I don't know about that." I was like, "It's a totally different movie." It's
I
same movie.
think what
So
Dylan just
different.
said is exactly what Paprika is, except not nearly as like jarring as Paprika, because Paprika was just all over the place the whole movie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Whereas this movie, you're at least holding on to the guardrail as it's going. Like you're not completely getting thrown
Right.
off of the ride.
Because
so.
there's two different pacings, right? Like there's the plot pacing and then there's the scene pacing, the visual versus like the narrative of it. And the scene pacing is my gripe with it. It felt like a slideshow to a point, and that Paprika kind of has that problem as well too. It's just like image, parade. Wait, we just had a parade.
Another one.
Yeah.
I think it is fit, pretty much for the same reason that Nathan does. I do like how it really amps up in its speed near the end because like Nathan said, the biggest thing that I think is best about this movie is that it puts you in the shoes of her, and it really you kind of get to feel as her. And I think if you were in her shoes and people were like dying and like somebody's trying to rape you, and then you find out your manager killed them and stuff, like there's a lot going on, and time is gonna get away from you
Everybody's gonna
super
pop
quickly. So I think that is fit. It does a good job of making you feel the same kind of bewilderment that she is.
I'm gonna say thin. I liked this movie enough to where like the psychological aspect of it was cool enough, but I don't know. I would say I wanted a little bit more like people just dropping like flies, or a little bit more of this or this, because she didn't know a whole lot of people. She knew like 3 people total.
They were all dying.
They were all dying, or like she was in contact with them almost every single day.
Yeah.
So like if they could have like spread that out a little bit, maybe like had her a little bit more not going insane from the very beginning. But I don't know. I think this movie was doing really well with what it had. And you said it was an hour 20, roughly?
Yeah, 20.
Yep.
They could have gotten away with an extra 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I don't know which part you really draw out. But like I said, the story was strong enough to where I think it could have supported a little bit extra. So it was pretty fit. I just think it was a little bit thin.
Wheat thin crackers.
Scores?
Scorinos. We'll start. Yeah.
Sorry, Nathan.
Nathan Mason.
Okay.
Price.
Ooh,
So
spicy.
I feel like I've been pretty fair on this movie.
Now it's time to
Here we go.
chop.
He's
It's
about to
always how
kill.
Nathan is. He's like, I agree more with Price. I'm gonna give the lowest score here.
Yeah.
So the thing about this film is I like what they did conceptually. I think it is very interesting. But did I enjoy this film?
Always with you,
overall?
Nathan.
Yeah.
God.
Ultimately, no. I didn't like this movie very much. I like parts of it. I like it conceptually. I'm going to, in this case, I'm just going to land at a 5 because it's kind of middle of the road. Because I think it's a lot of really good ideas, which pulls it one way. But then on the other hand, I just did not like what was going on. It was not a fun time.
Oh, same thing.
So I'm just going to land right in the middle.
Mason.
This movie, the biggest issue that I had with it, besides just the whole like, oh, I can only do one or the other, was the animation style. The animation in this movie, for being 1997, was awful. I couldn't stand looking at this movie from the very beginning. It was so bad, and like, I was trying to justify it.
That's a visuals thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's your-
exactly, right?
That's your thing, Nathan.
Yeah.
It was. I was
Maybe that's part
uninspired.
of why
Yeah,
I
did
was
so
sitting there, I
well.
was
Yeah.
like, okay, so Horseface, sure, he could stand out, but what about all these other awful, awful looking people? Then I was like, well, it is old. And then I was like, well, it's late 90s, early 2000s, whatever. Spirited Away was from the late 80s, wasn't it?
No, that was like 2000.
Which one was it? Oh, Grave of the Fireflies.
Grave of the
was-
Fireflies is more.
That
Have you
one.
seen that movie?
Yeah, yeah,
Why?
it's pretty.
That's of all the random movies
Why
for
did,
you to
yeah.
watch. What?
Why did you
Well,
watch that
I was
one?
expecting to, like, compare these two movies, and it...
No.
Well, I'm not saying, like, storyline-wise. I was just
I mean,
meant, like,
definitely not
darkness-wise, you know,
Yeah.
like, kind of like the
Oh,
the
Grave of the
feeling.
Fireflies is one of the darkest movies I've watched.
Alright, well, anyways, the visuals of this movie were
I can't believe you watched
awful, and
Strange.
Yeah.
while I really did like the story, I couldn't get over, like, that part of it, and like I said, just from the very beginning, like, these two managers were just silly. I'll still land at a 7. It's a pretty good movie, and I liked what it was doing, but, you know, you guys know how, like thrillers, there's always the killer at the very beginning. Somewhere in, like, the first third, you just have to sort of, like,
Sort through.
mosey around and
Mhm.
figure out who it was. That's exactly what this movie did, but for, like, a really dumb reason. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it was because she just didn't want her to be an actress. Like, that was her whole motive.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it supports it well enough. But all that considered, it was still a pretty good movie. And everything that Nathan just said, I agree with. It was just, I don't know. The fact that it had you in her shoes the whole time was really cool. I'm not put up there. I don't know.
What you got?
So, I've spoken at length. I like the psychological thriller part. I do like the narrative pacing of this film. I do feel like how quickly it introduces that we should be questioning me was like perspective in the film and things like that. I enjoyed, and you know how quickly she's just like, oh, this is cute. This website knows everything about me. Oh God.
She had never used a computer before.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
They're teaching her to. All right, so a couple minutes of explaining how to use a computer in 1997 probably valid at
Sure,
its time.
100%.
Totally
Yeah.
forgive this on
This
this
was
one.
Windows 95.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, that would be
So for
rough.
her to get into that and expressing the
It
deep,
was actually Mac OS.
that's true.
Was it?
Yeah. To get into like the gross seedy like pop like idol culture, because if you know anything about like Asian culture and
Yeah.
idol culture, that's honestly probably this is a lighter version of what actually goes on in a lot of times, to be honest. But
a lot of grooming.
yeah, a lot of gross weird stuff in there. This movie does do a lot of good stuff, all things considered, and the animation style bothers me a little less because I've been an anime geek for since I was 7 or even younger for that matter. So like seeing this retroactively, I'm like, yeah, this is 97. This looks like 97 to me, like 97 anime. But some of the choreography felt a little too tropey for me. The run scenes, the trip scenes, she just falls over. We haven't even talked about like the very very end, where the fact where we talk about that at the end, she sees the manager at the like mental health place or the mental ward, and she goes off and she's like, I'm the real me now, but she says it with the tone of like the like idol version of herself,
Yeah.
which I think is like it's fun little cat and mouse thing at the end where it's just sitting there. I'm like, okay, so this is either symbolic that it plays with the horror trope a little bit, that maybe it feels like the bad guy horror mentality got away, or it's just symbolic that she's just like, no, I own who I am, but that's just the confident tone that she chooses to use because it feels like that's a sense of confidence.
It's not meant to sway you, but I think it is like the Inception ending a little bit.
Right, it
How,
is.
Like,
No,
you don't
it's-
know if it ended well or ended...
Right, you're not sure if this is the good ending or the bad ending, and I think that's actually fine. I actually really like that about the movie. But just the excessness, some of the like it falls into some of the dumb horror tropes that I don't like about it, and that's my problem with it. Where it's at the psychological thriller, I'm on board with when it's doing its horror and it's not necessarily grotesquity, but excessiveness, and some of the pacing on that stuff. I would have loved just to even get a couple more minutes with just some of the characters that were getting killed. Not to say that they should be like way more in depth and stuff, because again, this is Miwa's movie. But just enough for me to be able to distinguish and feel at least a little bit of something when they die. I'm not expecting to feel, oh no, they killed the photographer who was taking inappropriate photos. But like that's the one character that I felt like, okay, I get it. And then the other ones just felt like they're dropping like flies because they were just existing in the world around her. And I'm just like, I don't care. Which one guy was that?
Yeah.
And that's a problem for me as well. It's just that it didn't feel very distinguished in some of the other characters. Even if they're dying, I want their deaths to at least click something for me. And I'm just like, that was side character B for all I know. I don't know. The guy ordered a pizza and didn't see anything weird with this situation.
Yeah.
So that being said, I actually landed right where Mason lands on this one. I give it a 7. It was doing actually not so bad for a job, but it just doesn't excel and it hits a lot of the dumb tropey stuff I don't like for those genre peaks.
Well, I think you are going to be surprised by my score because I picked this mainly because I thought it'd be an interesting like talking point because I think it does a lot of different kind of stuff. And we've watched a movie by this director before. It got visceral hate from everybody, but this one seems a little bit better. I think Paprika being a bit newer helps it a lot because I think they do a lot more interesting things with the character design and animation. Whereas this is one of the his beginning movies, I guess. And I'm with Mason. This is a very unappealing movie to look at, and I know this is a very unappealing topic to be talking about. Like the movie's talking about, I mean,
yeah,
but like I still I want to be interested in what I'm seeing on the screen, and there's no interesting character designs. It's one of the problems I have with animation is that if it can be done in a real life setting, it almost loses the point. Why is it animated? Which I think it does some interesting things to validate it being an anime, but not enough to make me say this couldn't be a real life movie. I think the most interesting thing is the story itself, which is pretty interesting. Talking about how she doesn't know her identity and she's kind of conforming to what everybody wants from her, but everybody wants something different from her and creates this image of herself that she doesn't agree with. But it's one of those movies. Kelly was asleep watching it with me. Watching it with me. She was asleep. Mm-hmm. And I, every time one of those racy scenes came on, I was turning it down. Please, just don't wake up. Don't wake up at this part.
And you were in those scenes for a while.
Yeah, and they dragged on for too long. Uh-huh. Luckily, she was very sleepy, so she didn't.
That's good.
That would knock off some points on my score because I want to keep that relationship together. But it's not something it's definitely not something I'm ever going to buy, and I have an affinity towards anime movies. It's not too interesting. I wouldn't want to recommend it to anybody. I'm not going to rewatch it. Probably not going to talk about it again. I just made them watch it because I thought it'd be interesting. But I am actually going probably one of my lowest scores I've ever given one of my movies, and that's a 5. It's just
7 and 5.
Something.
Yeah.
It's pretty uniform. That being said, you mentioned that if it could be done in live action, it feels like it kind of loses its appeal. And this immediately made me think I should go watch Late Night in Soho. Because it felt like that same,
Did you watch it?
Yeah, finally ended up watching it. But yeah, it's, pretty girl that's, going through, a psychological thriller, aspect and stuff like that.
Wants to be the biggest, star.
Right. It felt very similar, in paper. I was just yeah, why not?
Yeah, the only anime part about this was the fictitious version of herself.
Yeah, the one where
it was
the way she
otherwise
hops
entirely grounded.
The deaths, too. They were, extra super.
Yeah, even those could have been done like that.
Tarantino could have done that.
Right,
yeah.
Nothing about it was fantastical aside from that, floaty image of herself.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the horse face guy, I knew a guy who looked really similar to that. And I'm like, yeah.
You gotta do critics scores.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was going to do critics landed at an 80% on this, and audience landed at an 89.
That blows my mind.
I thought critics would be
Yeah,
higher.
I thought critics would be way ahead on this one, but if you tell me at 97, a big anime movie, I could kind of see, where this is talking about a relevant cultural thing, because you have to imagine, so much of this is also getting, the Asian audiences, and they're like, we get it! We fucking hate it, though. We're gonna kill these idols if they switch their lives, though. That's interesting, though. I would have bet the other way around on that one. But
I would have to.
I would have thought both of them were lower.
Yeah. No, I actually agree.
Because this wasn't,
the fact that they were both critics and audiences were hotter on this than even we were.
Yeah.
But I guess there was a time...
None of us landed.
Right. None of us even landed towards
an
8. But knowing that, I guess, that those are time period relevant, I think says a big thing, though. 97?
Yeah.
What else is going on there except for... 98 is whenever we get Pokemon the movie, so... Actually, that might have been
when anime
99.
Really hits it off.
Hey, that's when animation
anime.
That sounds like something I need to be watching.
Listen, y'all joke, but let's get the wheel.
Wheel.
Wait,
You
gotta hold it.
Am I
I've been
picking
spinning.
it
I've been
up?
crushing it with spins this week. All right, what do I think it's gonna be? Because it feels like that's.
Kingdom of Heaven.
You're just picking a random one.
No, I'm gonna put money on Baby Driver this time. Actually.
Hell yeah, let's go.
Okay, go for it. I'm holding it.
Speaking of canceled actors,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been perfect there.
Casablanca.
woo, so close, but we're going with the
Casablanca.
classic, man.
Yeah.
Jill.
You thought '97 was old? It's Casablanca time.
That has been on there since last season.
Yo,
That pick has
That
been
was
on
at the
there a
beginning
long
of
time.
last season.
It's-
it was.
Yeah.
It was. I
Trailer
put that
for
one
Casablanca.
really early on. That one's actually my
That's-
pick.
That's what
Is
I'm
there a
wondering.
trailer for Casablanca?
Yeah, they had
We're
to
gonna
put one
find
together.
out.
Oh man, yeah. I was about to say, does this finally break the trailer mold with it? Maybe. I mean, that's surely.
I don't know. I'd be
Alright.
interested to find out. You see all the cameras that Nathan has up there
Oh,
for
yeah.
all of his games.
All the government.
They're always watching. Why Perfect Blue is terrifying. Already.
That's a good video. I like him a lot. Super Eye Patch Wolf. He's got some interesting things.
Don't plug him on
Who?
here. We're live right now. Plug FN Podcast.
That's
it.
got 3.6 million views.
Oh, hey, there is a.
We have like 1/1,000,000th of that.
Don't plug him. He doesn't need them.
I am looking for an adventure.
You will find it.
In Casablanca. Okay.
Casablanca.
Yeah, if you want to put your women in their place, you gotta do
Mhm.
the shade.
Huh. Oh. Oh. Didn't realize this was about Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's set in the World War II period. It's more or less Inglourious Bastards. Can't you tell?
Well, it did have a scene with a bunch of Nazis sitting around a table at a
Uh-huh.
bar,
At a bar.
so yeah.
Dinner table.
Somebody's
Humphrey
about
Bogart.
to.
I love it.
say with the wrong number of
He was
fingers.
acting like it was doing. He was like, "Bum, bum, 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 bum."
Ingrid Bergman.
That's such a long caption.
It is.
Finding the strange fascination that draws him closer to ever.
Dylan, have you seen this yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
You have?
yeah. That's why I wanted to put it on here.
Oh.
I'm gonna say it's gonna be good.
How long is this?
That's
Too damn. Probably.
It's
That's-
long, but it's
that's
not like
what I'm
grotesquely
guessing,
long.
too.
Let me double check on that one. I feel like it's a 2 hour.
I bet this movie doesn't have a third of the personality of Some Like It Hot.
I bet it's all in that guy right there.
Mr. Chin.
Oh, she's got a gun. It's kind of hard to tell because of the
Yeah,
Actually-
from the dress.
It's not so bad. Hour 42.
That's okay.
Okay.
100 minutes.
Where every
It's like-
burning moment brings a new dancer.
Where every kiss may be the last.
Yeah.
Oh God.
The best part about this trailer is, like, having even seen this, it's been a minute, but I'm just like,
free.
I couldn't tell you what the fuck is going on in this movie.
I love the transition wipes. That it's
Oh
got.
yeah,
Are
they're
those-
all different.
Yeah.
Are those
Uh-huh.
going to be in the film
I
too?
hope.
I don't recall. Like, it's been...
Because those are like transition wipes that are built into
Right.
generic video editing
Oh, yeah.
software.
It's
PowerPoint.
been a...
That's a page wipe, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Right.
PowerPoint stuff.
It's been, I would
See
say,
some custom animation.
close
Yeah.
to 10 years since I've seen
Satisfactory.
Hey.
Mm.
Yeah, it's been close to about 10 years since I've seen this one, but yeah, Casablanca, what a trailer. Like, gosh, 1942, those effects were like, this is why, PowerPoint seems so cool, is because they were just doing 1942
Yeah.
trailer things on that one.
So
But anyway,
you can now do it yourself.
Yeah,
At home
I
with
will-
your personal computer.
55 years later.
I will put out that here's my bold thought ahead of
Put
time.
out, Dylan.
I will put out that I think this might be the most interesting movie we're going to probably ever review, or that we reviewed thus far. Not because I think it's doing a
That
bunch of
is a
things,
bold claim.
That's a very bold
but
claim.
because it is Casablanca
When
is
we've watched
the
Kung Fu Panda 2.
title classic with it. So we've diversity-wise, this is other than Some Like It Hot, and Some Like It Hot wasn't even full black and white. This is true, like way back
And
on
I,
this one.
Dylan, am the one who picked
No.
it, so of course.
Just because- yeah.
it's got the most class.
No, but it's Tell me I'm wrong. It's not the most diverse movie in our roster with this. If we're going to look at our roster and things like that, like a black and white classic.
I'm picking Jackass.
No, shut the fuck up.
True cinema.
True.
I'm not saying this is better. I'm not saying this is anything. I'm saying that this is by far like going to be more and more diverse things. And I would be so intrigued to see where we all land on this, even on myself for that matter, because I remember watching it and liking it, but this had been about 10 years ago now, so my taste could be who knows where now on where it lands. So anyway, that's our thought of Perfect Blue. Make sure to tune in next week for Casablanca. It's finally happening.
White House.
Yeah, if you like big dicks in anime, make sure to let us know in the comments below.
Hell yeah.
Let us know that we feel it's unjust that 1997 they're showing boobs, they're showing bush, even showing a little tush, no dong. What the fuck?
Boobs.
No dongs allowed.
Tush.
Yeah, no
and
dongs
tush.
allowed. Even give me a pixel. I don't care. Just let it be like implied that it's there. If you like the commentary that we're doing today, give us a thumbs up. Hit the bell. If you want to keep on seeing this stuff, seeing all these weird movies, we're going from 97's Perfect Blue to this, which I guess isn't such a huge leap, so to speak.
Yeah. 55 years.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big leap, but alright.
For a man.
Critics love them both, but I guess so.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, that's our show. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure to give us a thumbs up and a big old heart. Give us a big old smooch too while you think about it. Mwah. Happy Valentine's Day. It's not Valentine's Day, but with
It may be when this
Casablanca,
comes out.
Casablanca coming out, actually, it'd be pretty fitting for it to be coming out.
I don't know anything about this. This is frankly, there.
It's frankly, I don't give a damn.
I don't give a damn.
That's pretty sure it's Bond. But anyway, that's our show. Make sure to tune in next week for Casablanca. Bang.
Bye.
Bye.
Why did all of them in this movie they do that real quick?